Good morning, everyone. President, Director, and I recognize, of course, some former leading public officers that I've worked with at some stage, especially Ms. Shirley Bell, of course. I'm honored to have been invited to speak with you all this morning, feature address. I regard PARADOS as one of the most important institutions in this country, established now for over, 53 years, and established essentially to do work with a mandate to improve parenting skills and family life in Barbados. Not many associations can have a more important mandate than PARADOS. It was always my intention, you've heard, and everyone knows that disabilities advancement in terms of life for persons with disabilities is my main policy area. And I had, just after the 2022 elections, which would be my last election that I will run, I said, look, let me join PARADOS. I had intended to wait until after the end of my elective career. And one morning I woke up and said, look, let me join now. I'm not going to be able to do much. I'm still a member of parliament. I brought a constituent with me, but I invited participants of the parenting program and life skills program that my foundation, the Clarkson Foundation, carried out last year, and at which PARADOS delivered 3 sessions. And Danielle Thompson said she would come, and I'm very happy about that. But I said, initially I'll wait until after I finish my elective career, but then I said, no, let me start now. Not going to be able to do much because, member of parliament, practicing lawyer, that is 2 full-time jobs. But, you don't put down till tomorrow what you could do today. And I pledge, of course, don't know what I will be doing after I leave elective politics. A lot of rumors going around, but I can't confirm or deny such. But certainly, I will assist PARADOS where I can. I agree wholeheartedly with your patron, Dame Sandra Mason, President of Barbados, that PARADOS needs all the assistance which it can get from those in society who are in a position to assist. You get an annual subvention, as I understand it, $88,000 through from government through the Ministry of People's Empowerment and Elder Affairs, and a case really and truly should be substantially made out that you should get more than that, even if it is from another government ministry, such as Ministry of Crime Prevention or Ministry of Education. And certainly, if you wish me to try and intercede on your behalf in that regard, and obviously we all know the estimates just concluded, and I'm not so sure if there's facility for that, but certainly through the Ministry of Crime Prevention, we should be able to get something. Because when my foundation held, as I said, the Parenting and Life Skills program last year, we were able to access some funding from the Ministry of Crime Prevention to assist with the parenting aspect of it. But certainly, you need an outreach program whereby you can obtain supplementary funding from humanitarian people and philanthropists in Barbados to assist your cause. It is perhaps regrettable that we have not yet been able to bring back in the tax credits that we had when the Barbados Labour Party was last in office under the Right Honourable Owen Arthur, where you would recall you used to get tax deductions for donations to charitable organizations or non-governmental organizations such as PARADOS. And that certainly will help in attracting people to give funding to you if they could get tax deductions for it. But parenting is one of the most challenging responsibilities which any person would ever have thrust on them. As you heard, I have 2 children now, both adults. The younger is 29, older, 33. And out of all that I've done in life, quite honestly, being a parent is one of the most challenging. I always say you really can't read it in a book, you learn on the job. My parliamentary colleague, Minister Charles Griffith, Minister of Youth, Community Development, opined in Parliament last month during the estimates debate, in fact in response to a question which I asked of him, that he believes that there's a parenting crisis in Barbados. The fact is that when a child emerges from the womb, or by C-section, as most of you all would know firsthand and here, not me, and when I look around, of course, as usual, it's significant majority women. Where do men go? How many men? 1, 2, 3, 4, beside me. But that's the reality in Barbados, right? So Charles, my colleague, in response to a question I posed to him, said he believes that there's a parenting crisis on the island. And a child is born, parents now face a challenge which in most instances does not even end when the child reaches adulthood at age 18, but continues well into the when that child is still in the 20s, sometimes maybe even in the 30s. This is even more so if, of course, your child is born with physical, sensory, or neurological disabilities. And you have to consider as a parent and bear at the front of your mind that a child's character and value base is essentially formed in the first 7 years of their life. All the psychiatrists and sociologists and experts say that. I'm therefore reminded of Psalm 127 verses 3 to 5 that children are a gift and a blessing from God. Parenting is one of God's most important callings. Effective parenting techniques emphasize setting clear expectations, consistent discipline. So it can't be that one parent allows one set of values and standards and the other, or even a grandparent, takes the opposite stance. And that is so, we know, in a lot of cases, and children exploit that difference and easily divide and rule the parents or the caretakers or guardians or mother and grandparent. And that has to be avoided as best as possible. Parents must also foster open communication with their children, promote positive relationships, ultimately nurturing well-adjusted and confident children. We need to set clear rules for the household and communicate them to our children. Explain why these rules exist. Children have good understanding from what is 1, 2. And they can't explain as well the consequences of breaking those rules. Enforce these rules consistently. Don't be inconsistent. Allow them to get away with one thing today, but not tomorrow. Enforce these rules consistently, but ensure that the consequences of breaking them are fair, proportionate, and educational. We need to spend quality time with our children, make time for one-on-one interactions with them, express love and affection through words, hugs, and cuddles. Some of us, especially men, are not as demonstrative in terms of showing love and affection as we ought to be. That is the truth. Remember my granddaughter, she's now 5 and very intelligent individual. And when she was, I think it was 2, she was in bed with my wife and I, and she was asking, does XY love me? And her mother would say yes. When she reached, does granddad love me? And she might have had some doubt, right? Truth is, I don't never behaved yet or anything like that, boy. So her grandmother said, yes, Granddad loves you. He plays ball with you. And that seemed to satisfy her and convince her that Granddad did love her. Pay attention to your children's thoughts and feelings and concerns. Patience and time and effort is involved. Model the behavior and values which you want your child to adopt. Proverbs 22 verses 6 is sacrosanct in this regard, in its pronouncement that you should train a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. Children, of course, copy the actions, words, behavioral patterns of their parents. We all know that. I was in church 2 weeks ago and there was a little girl. Subsequently, mother told me she was 2. And, I think she was sitting on the grandmother. But when I looked at her, you could see her mannerisms were just like the mother. There was no doubt that whose child that was. And we know that too. So if you have bad behavior, bad attitude, the child will be the same way. Insist on attendance at church or some form of spiritual or moral education for young children. And look, this is important. I grew up in the Anglican church. My mother, even now, I think some of you all would know, still strong Anglican. Even if you aren't a strong church goer, and I said in Parliament on two or three occasions, the traditional church has a lot to pay for its sins, quite honestly, in subjugating and dehumanizing our ancestors as part of the Church of England and helping have us in this state that we are in. That is the truth. But the reality of the situation is that the moral values instilled in children before they're the age 7, where I said your characteristics are fully formed essentially for the rest of your life, is important. And every church I go into on a Sunday, and I try to go in at least once a year to every church in my constituency. And the church, of course, composed just like how this room composed. 90% of the church is women anyway. And but you look around and there are hardly any children in the church. That is the truth. And the few children that in the church invariably girls. We know that. That ain't true. Yes, so what happened? Because in a country that essentially half of the children born are boys, half girls, it's about that. Don't mind what men used to say that women outnumber men 6-1. I mean, men only used to say that to try to justify the amount of women they had. Essentially, it is 1-on-1. So, why is it that the women who, let's face the fact, go to the church more than the men, can't get the grandsons or the sons or the great nephews to come to church with them, but they might pull along the granddaughter? So, being around for a long time at grassroots level is because the little boys must begin to tell the grandmother or mother or aunt, I ain't going to church, right? And we accept that, but that can't be right. You need to hold the tail and get them in a church or to Sunday school in the morning. This is what your parents did with you. But many of y'all went to church or Sunday school twice, sometimes 3 times a day on a Sunday. Perpetually at church in between getting some lunch. But now can't bring your grandson to church or great nephew. And then the running about the place, not getting instilled with the moral values that the church is going to instill as part of this community. Even if, as I said, I may have some historical problems with how the church operated in this country. So, we must be reliable and we must be trustworthy. both in our actions and words towards our children. Treat children with respect. They're human beings, just like us, and they will reciprocate respect. If you treat your children with disrespect, you're cussing them all the time, they go on the road cussing too. That is the truth. At 8 years old, I will be in my constituency and little boys about the place cussing bad. That is the truth. And I know that the older fellas giving them some drugs, introducing them to illegal drugs already. We know that the statistics from the National Council of Substance Abuse, which I had ministerial mandate when I was Minister of Home Affairs, shows that a lot of children into illegal drug use already at age 8 and 9. Well, I never even smoked a cigarette in my life, all this use the drugs. I don't understand that, but that is the reality. And that is the truth. You go in some districts and the father's got the little man, as they would say, on the knees, and the father's using some illegal drugs. Well, what do you expect to happen with that child? Giving them some marijuana tea when the morning come as breakfast. That is unacceptable behavior. Then we want to know why values in some areas breaking down. Praise and reward good behavior. Acknowledge and accept and admit your mistakes in relation to your children. Big up their self-esteem. As I said, they're human beings and they want to be praised like how we want to be praised as adults in here. No. Allow the children to take responsibility for their actions though, and learn from their mistakes. Too many children are allowed to do as they please. Right now we have someone not getting into the internal affairs of any other country, but we have someone who is in a very powerful position, very, very powerful position internationally as leader of a superpower, who clearly was not taught to accept responsibility by his parents, certainly not by his father, and that's known. The family says so. Never admit that he wrong yet. Would interfere with all the women and do all kind of things, and but he's not wrong. He's got away with it, regrettably in my opinion, but that's a living example of someone who never accepted responsibility for their mistakes and their wrongdoings, and the whole world has had to pay and will be paying for it for a while. Help our children to identify problems and find solutions. Identify their strengths and encourage them to pursue their interests. Acknowledge and celebrate your child's accomplishments, both big and small. Make the right choices on nutrition for your children. It's very important, especially for babies. Failure to do such will lead to health issues in the future. And the fact that almost 1/3, they said 31% of children in Barbados are obese, is not a statistic to be proud of, especially in light of the fact that we, people of our color and from our region, are prone to diabetes and hypertension and other non-communicable diseases later on in life. And therefore, the recent government policy of taxing, the salt tax essentially, on unhealthy foods is exactly correct and the way to go. I still see some parents saying, boy, healthy food's too expensive and all of that kind of thing. But get up in the morning and cook some good food for your children, some ground provisions and things, and get them, but you can't be buying all these snacks that are unhealthy. Got the children obese. When you're obese and you're physically not fit, that goes to the mental as well. So nutrition is key. Good, healthy nutrition. And reach out. As I said, parenting is a challenge, so reach out and network with other parents and family members and, if necessary, professionals for support. Attend PTA meetings with regularity, and I see that another parliamentary colleague of mine, the Honourable Cynthia Ford, yesterday, at least is reported in today's paper, spoke about the breakdown of PTAs in Barbados, that a lot of parent-teachers associations are not meeting, and this is unfortunate, because they should not only meet, be encouraged to meet, but parents should attend. Because when they meet, a lot of parents don't attend, that is the truth. Parents need to attend. Nobody forced anybody to get a child or was present when the act of conception of the child was taking place beside the two people involved. So we have to take responsibility and find time to attend meetings that concern our children. There are four basic styles of parenting. There's the authoritarian, the authoritative, the permissive, and the uninvolved. And it's accepted that the authoritative is the most compatible style of parenting. So organizations such as PARADOS, in my opinion, need to go into communities a bit more often than they do. Communities which have issues of social dislocation and inequilibrium, rather than seek to have parents come into the very structured environments for training. There's a greater comfort level to meet people within their own environment. There's the government's recognition, of course, 3 years ago, that wider emphasis must be placed on community parenting. So we have the National Peace Program now, of which I believe PARADOS is a part. You have the National Transformation Initiative, you have the Advanced Youth Corps, you have Barbados Youth Service, you also have the First Jobs Initiative, where $150,000 is given in this coming year's financial budget, starting Tuesday, April 1st, for life coaching and parenting programs. In the Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs, separate and distinct from the $600,000 allocated for community parenting programs in the Ministry of Crime Prevention, and that $600,000 in the Ministry of Crime Prevention has been increased from $500,000 which it was in this financial year currently ending on Monday. And of course, the First Jobs Initiative is through the Ministry of Labour. But government has to be careful to avoid duplication across these programs with resultant wastage, financial and otherwise, as these programs spread across, in fact, 5 or 6 ministries. However, the very soul and heart of Barbados, as we know it, rests on the success of this enterprise, on the success of community parenting. We cannot continue as a society to have a situation where many parents, and regrettably I say this, mothers who have primary responsibility in this still predominantly matriarchal nation, tolerate criminal activity, drugs, guns, etc., and refuse to call out their children and relatives, and in fact harbor and provide sustenance to them. Again, I've only held a gun once in my lifetime. I ain't got the power to guns. A client of mine died, and his wife called me and asked me to take the gun back to the police station. And I waited till nightfall, because I didn't want the body seeing me with this gun. I waited till nightfall and drove in the police station and handed this thing, and they wrote down, he booked the gun to her name. When I was minister in charge of police for 7 months, I told people, listen to me, the only people who I believe should have guns in this country is the police and defense force. So when you appeal from the Commissioner of Police's refusal to grant you a gun license to me as minister, you come to me, I say, listen to me, My lady, you telling me you want gun license because you're a businesswoman? When 5 gunmen hold you up at night time, what you gonna do if you have a gun? You feel that you're gonna shoot all 5 of them before the shoot you and take away your gun? Your appeal for a gun license refused. That was my position. So this notion that parents, particularly mothers, let's face fact, and grandmothers, harboring and sustaining these bad boys who got guns in the house, drugs or buried away in the yard, and they know it's totally unacceptable. And it's an issue that has to be dealt with. You know, and it is sad. So 3 days ago, a 13-year-old boy gets shot. What is that? Good enough. Wake up in the morning, good. And you don't know that by 8 o'clock in the night, he no longer has life. Because of this kind of foolishness that's going on in this country. That, as I said, our women tolerating, because the men bringing money into the household and sustaining the household. People got money, you don't even want to know where it's coming from once they're providing for you. And they come home, open your pot and take out food. No, it has to stop. And there's no use crying out the belly when the young man not even having lost his features, because it's mainly now what? People, fellas between 16 and 22. They ain't even lose the mother features yet. And they're dead in the road by gunfire. Or before the court's on a murder charge and the mother and aunt and grandmother down in the court bawling. And my son was a good boy, or is a good boy. It's only two women, or 2 instances, 2 or 3 that I remember in the last 3 years where the female member of the family spoke the truth. I remember one up in the pine said, well, you know, he used to rob from the rich to get to the poor. So she admitted that, even though she was still trying to make an excuse for him, that he was no good. But that is not the way to do it. But they know. So, dogs is not easy. You all have relationship with dogs, and I urge you to, COVID finished now, to enhance that program you have with fathers who are soon coming out of prison, in terms of reconciling them and making it easier for them to fit back into society. Dogs is not easy. When I was Home Affairs Minister, with responsibility for the prisons as well. You go up there, but that is not a place that you want to be. It's not a hotel, that is true. Your freedom is not even curtailed, totally gone. And our recidivism rate, as we know it, is very high, about what, 60%? Even more, 65% of those who go to prison and back up in prison in Barbados within 4 years of coming out. So it cannot be, fellas, that you continue in criminal activity, whether it is in the words, I think 2 years ago, by the Vincentian Prime Minister, the Honorable Ralph Gonzalez, that the fellas in criminal activity to support high maintenance women or otherwise, it is not acceptable. Because when you're in jail, or when you're dead from violence, the women still gonna go and get another man. So it don't make the sense looking to support them. That is the truth. They're gonna get another man on you. And you're in jail and you can't do anything about it, or you're dead. So these young girls gotta stop encouraging this kind of nonsense too, because I know some in my constituency never work a day in their life, and they're late 20s, supported by gunmen and drug men. So These community parenting programs must have an emphasis on practical approaches rather than theoretical areas. You cannot idealistically learn about better parenting from reading a book, but only by practical application. We need to commence parenting classes in some communities to persons even before they become parents. But that is my view. Even before some of these young people become a parent, you have to intervene with them and teach them about being a parent. Because the unfortunate reality is that some of these young people need parenting too, and they have a child. That is the truth. We need to bring on board, to a greater extent, non-profit organizations and NGOs, such as my foundation. And well, I see, of course, you get support from Sandy Lane Trust and Maria Holder Trust. Really and truly, without those kind of NGOs, charitable organizations, non-profit organizations, essentially comprising persons who are not Barbadian born, I don't know where we would be. Both, especially during the COVID time. But bring on these organizations, non-profit, etc., even the service organizations, Lions, of which I'm a life member, Rotaries, Kiwanis, Optimists. I think some of you all here have been or are in those such organizations, and ask them to help in your programs. Name parent champions to be used as role models at community level. Persons who can and are willing to assist parents who are struggling. Hold regular award ceremonies to reward and highlight parents who are doing an excellent job or making a worthy effort to improve as parents. So yes, you need to go on an outreach program to try to find persons, could be retired persons, who are willing to help you in this. And again, the Honorable Cynthia Ford apparently said so very recently, I think it was yesterday, because she reported as saying that in the paper, that teachers and retired school teachers and priests and nurses should be brought on board to help in terms of parenting at the voluntary level. Establish parent centers where parents can receive assistance with their children when they feel stressed out or out of their depth. And of course, government would have to be involved in this. Certainly, that I believe parent centers should be established to give parents assistance. Because children are stressed, that is true, especially if you have more than what you can handle. Big brother and big sister programs need to be expanded, whereby persons can be paired with children to provide guidance in areas such as mentoring, career guidance, emotional intelligence, and mental health issues. And of course, that is very important, because a lot of adults file their children under pressure mentally in terms of the mental health and emotional intelligence. And therefore, we need to have, that kind of program. I believe PARADOS had it. I know that other organizations had it, but I'm not hearing as much as I used to hear before about those kind of programs, big brother, big sister programs. And all of this relates to volunteering, people volunteering in society to make this place better, because all of us have a stake in it. It's estimated that Canada, for instance, where I studied, 7% of the gross national product is brought on by volunteerism. That kind of statistic has never been analyzed here in Barbados, but it needs to be, because volunteerism has to be part of our social development in a larger scale than it is now. My opinion is that the National Youth Service, Youth Advance Corps, and other similar programs need to be compulsory for young people, both male and female, who are not studying or who are not in vocational training or who are not working in gainful employment after they leave school, like between ages 17 and 25. If you're not working, studying, in vocational training, I believe the National Youth Service, the Youth Advanced Corps, or some similar program should be compulsory for you. One of the problems in Barbados is we got too much freedom. So we have freedom to go on the block, lime all day, smoke some drugs, and use a gun. And of course, you know, our culture is not like Singapore, you know. So, you know, I suppose some people would say, boy, look, talking about a culture that is different from what we are accustomed to, that we can't compel anybody to do anything in Barbados, but I would find a way, because it can't be that you're wasting away your life causing problems. And for example, we have to import people, some of whom can't even speak English, to work in construction in Barbados. That is the truth. Of course, we accept CARICOM nationals, they are us. We're in the same legal framework, so I have no problem with people coming in from CARICOM countries. But how we having people coming in from all kind of other places, Colombia and all kind of other places, to work here, because we can't find young people to work. But people can say that, man, the government ain't doing nothing for me, the politician ain't doing nothing for me. We need to get some compulsory programs here. That is my solid view. That's my personal view. The issue of, I accept though that as a government we need to extend facilitation of those who wish to pursue vocational studies, that we don't have the physical space enough to do it. And Minister Sandra Husbands, who is now Minister of Tertiary Education and Vocational Training, admitted that last month in the estimates debate. The issue of tying the One Family Program recipients to attendance at parenting programs, I think, is also key. Because as you know, within the last year and a half, government brought in the One Family Program to give enhanced benefits, not only monetary but training, and trying to move you from welfare to work to 1,000 families. It will be more than 1,000 right now. And they also organized, government has also organized, so this is through the Ministry of People Empowerment, parenting programs, that these participants in the 1,000 family who are getting enhanced assistance from government can attend. But right now, only 50 to 20% of those in the One Family Program attended. And again, this is my personal view, of which I'm free to speak, that I will tie it in. If you get in this help from government, you have to go to this program. No, we got too much freedom in this country. You get in more money from government every month. You have vocational training facilities. The children that you have but can't look after adequately, they get in food, uniform, all kind of thing, right? I set up a parenting program to help you, I as a government, right? To help you better understand and be a better parent. And you not come in? No. Can't be just 1 in 5 or 1 in 6. It gotta be compulsory, in my opinion. See how fast they will come. So it's parenting in Barbados in crisis, as my colleague and friend, Minister Charles Griffith, has said. I would say that if it isn't in crisis, it is under very, very serious pressure. That's the truth. Very, very serious pressure. And the results of that are being shown in some communities. So we need to adopt an all-of-society approach to arrest this right now. Because, it can't be government alone and politicians. We only got 30 of us elected. So it can't be us dealing with this issue. And government. It can't be our responsibility, primary and predominant responsibility for raising the children of individual persons. Politicians didn't get them. Although sometimes I wonder what people feel, because one time a constituent of mine called me and she wanted me to give her $3,000 to get a DNA test. Like if I went there. So, that is how ridiculous it could get. Serious, yeah. But it can't be our responsibility for raising your children of individual parents. State of Barbados gives free education at point of delivery, free healthcare. Our educational system is in the midst of being transformed. Prime Minister has wisely created a Ministry of Educational Transformation. Parents, in association with their children's schools, particularly primary schools, have to treat and address at an early stage and diagnose issues such as ADHD and conduct disorder and oppositional defiant disorder. So we're looking to bring back, and I think we've started bringing back diagnostic testing of children at ages 3 and 4 and 5 to find out these issues, and parents have to cooperate with this. And quite honestly, you'll recall that 30 years ago when the now Prime Minister, the Honourable Mia Motley, was Minister of Education, we had that early diagnostic testing of primary school children. I don't know where it fell off. But it's so important because I think too many people, children and the adults too, walking about with ADHD and these issues which are not diagnosed and which are not treated. And part of that is causing the problem too. The personal responsibility for the children who you bring into this world is your primary challenge, not the government's. One mother I know, her daughter who was living with her put on some clothes and she going through the door, and the daughter tells the mother, "I going out." And the mother tells her, wait, but you forgetting something though. The daughter tells her, but how am I forgetting something? She said, "You're forgetting your child. You can't assume I'm looking after your child tonight." So that's the kind of thing that we have. And we have to, as parents of these children, grandparents of the little children, insist that our children have greater responsibility for looking after their children. You can't assume that grandmother can look after your child, or the grandmother look after you already had their problems looking after you. God look after your child too? No. I wish PARADOS all the best going forward and commend those who volunteer or work for ex gratia payments or nothing at all in attempting to make Barbados better in terms of the children and youth that we have. We as a society must invest more nationally in our youth, and this starts with enhancing parenting skills of every parent, particularly of those from the most vulnerable households. It's really been my pleasure and honor to speak with you this morning, to give my thoughts, not as a professional parental trained expert, but as someone with experience, having had 2 children, and I really don't know how I could have handled any more than the 2 that I had, the truth. And of course, being a politician, long-standing, and therefore understanding and knowing what goes on in the communities in Barbados. I'm obliged.